Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi Alliance. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Luke.
And in today's video, we're reviewing the Beekeeper. If you like the sound of that, stick around and like and subscribe.
So tell me a little bit, what's the Beekeeper?
It is a 2024 movie that the runtime is 105 minutes and is starring Jason Statham.
Yes, it's directed by David Ayer and written by Kurt Wimmer. So Kurt Wimmer is credited for writing movies such as The Recruit, Law-Abiding Citizen and Point Break, the 2015 version, as well as The Expendables 4, where David Ayer has created, and directed things like The End of Watch, Fury, the Suicide Squad, not the most recent one, the one before that. He has also written Training Day, Fast and the Furious, the original one, and a movie called SWAT. So in some good company, they'll give you kind of an idea of what you're in for with this movie. So what's the plot of this movie, Jacob?
So the plot for the Beekeeper is that Jason Statham's character is he's a beekeeper, a tenant for someone, and he is living the quiet life, and then something happens to the person that is looking after him. She has $200 million stolen, and then that unfortunately starts the events of the movie. She shoots herself, and then he starts his rampage through and starts the events of the movie. So we get to see his normal action scenes that you can expect, and it's a really cool movie from there.
Yeah, so we find out that even though he works as a beekeeper, he is also part of a secret government agency called the Beekeepers, where their job is to protect the hive and
at all costs.
At all costs, and he is a dangerous man that you shouldn't mess with. And throughout the movie, we see this at times, maybe a bit unrealistic, but the movie is full of analogies that refer back to the bees, and it's all about the bees in this movie.
I love the bees.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny in that way. So in the cast, you mentioned we've got Jason Statham, who's famous from what are some of the things? He's in heaps of things.
Transporter, quite a lot of things.
He plays a very similar-ish action role in his films. He's very typecast, but he's good at what he does. We got Josh Hutcherson, who he's kind of the villain in this film. You'd know him from things like The Hunger Games.
Five Nights with Freddy's.
Yeah, so he's been in something recently, so those movies are not too far apart, so he somehow found time to film them in his schedule. And Emmy Rover Lampton, which I've never heard of her, but she plays the FBI agent in this film and is the daughter of the person that kills themselves, and also is the person trying to hunt Jason Statham's character throughout. So, okay acting performance. The film was filmed in 2022 in England, so even though it's set in America, it was filmed in England. It actually filmed a little while back, so it's taken a while for them to release this.
Because of COVID.
So let's get into the scoring, Jacob. What did you give the plot for this film?
For me, this gets a 4, and unfortunately it's very generic. The mother shoots herself, what needed to happen, but unfortunately the daughter could have been any job, but she just happens to be an FBI agent, and that for me felt very generic. And then the villain, this is spoilers, she just happens to be the president of the United States. Like, a lot of things felt generic and uninteresting. And then Jason Statham being the best beekeeper, everything, beating everyone. It's not the best plot, but it has a plot.
So I gave the plot a 5 out of 10. I think for an action movie, it's kind of what you expected, but full of lots of plot conveniences, lots of absolutely far-fetched action scenes that I don't think are possible, and it was almost comedical at times, some of the things that happen, but that's what kind of happens with action movies, and they're not generally my thing, so I think a 5 is not a bad score for me for an action film, really, for plot-wise. What did you give the acting?
This gets a 6. The actors do their job, but no one's going to win an Academy Award for this movie. Jason Statham does the right thing. No one does a standout performance, but they do their job.
For the acting, I gave it a little bit lower. I gave it a 5. Again, what acting is really required for an action film besides the action sequences? And then a lot of those were probably done by stuntmen. But yeah, the dialogue was kind of few and far between, just what you expect for an action film. So nothing stand out, but 5, kind of middle of the range. What about the presentation of the experience, which is probably going to be the main thing in an action film? What did you give that?
This does really well at 8. I really enjoyed his combat skills, really enjoyed how he eventually does defeat the Hive. I think that does a really awesome job for a B-grade movie. It does its job, but it's kind of what you would expect. So if you want something more, it doesn't do it, but the experience with the action, I enjoyed that part.
I gave it an 8.5. I think for an action film, even though it was far-fetched, I liked the way they did the action sequence. It wasn't too over the top. I was engaged throughout it. I was watching it and thinking, this is quite enjoyable. And I had pretty low expectations. So 8.5 for a pretty generic action film that was... The premise itself, I think, was quite good. I just think there was little tweaks that could be made. So the experience was quite good. What about the ending of this film? What did you give that out of 10?
For me, this gets a 6, but the ending is nothing special. The hero always wins what is very old, but you expect it. It is cool how you get to see a bee, what it is, the beekeeper, but it does feel very rushed, but it's a movie that doesn't overstay its welcome. The runtime is very quick and sharp, and that's what I liked about it, but I'm someone that has expectations with ending, and it doesn't do anything groundbreaking.
I gave the ending, again, a 5. I gave a lot of 5s today. I thought it was... it went from 0 to 100 pretty quick. I'm not going to give away too many spoilers, but it was... In the end, there's a dark secret in the film, and it kind of just reveals it very late in the piece, and then it all kind of ends really rapidly. The ending was extremely far-fetched, but the whole movie was far-fetched, so it kind of aligned with the whole movie itself. So for an action film, I think it was kind of a decent ending, so I think 5, not too bad. Originality?
For me, I really actually like this aspect of the movie, this alternate reality world when this organization has this bigger organization than the government, the FBI, CIA. There's this Beekeeper organization. This is the part of the movie that I really enjoyed, and personally I would like there to be a prequel or a TV show or something just to show the recruitment, because personally I buy that Jason Statham's character got in, but the female that shows up, I did not buy that she made the recruitment process. So I'd love to see something else in this world, because the world is awesome and the Beekeeper organization is fantastic. I want to learn more about that, so hopefully that happens.
I gave the original an 8.5. I think it had a really cool premise. Again, don't want to give away too many spoilers, but this concept of the Beekeeper organization was kind of cool, but the villain's motive, and this whole idea of being a phishing scam of putting viruses on people's computers, them calling you up, and then you taking their money in that moment. And it kind of aligned with Wolf of Wall Street for me. It was a lot of the characters, the way they were doing these scams felt very similar to the character in Wolf of Wall Street played by Leonardo DiCaprio, which also was a real person. So I thought that was kind of cool and a bit over the top though, but it was original. And then the way that it was kind of funding presidential elections and politics, I just think it actually had a really original premise. It was just a bit silly. So it is original, I'll give it that. What about the appeal of this movie? How appealing is it to the general population?
This gets a 5. I think if you're a Jason Statham fan, you're obviously going to love this. And if you love B-grade movies, you're going to love this. But if you're someone that wants to watch a amazing, world-breaking movie. You're definitely not going to watch this. So I'm in the middle. I always love good action movies when you can turn off your brain, but unfortunately you're not going to get anything more out of it. So that's why it's in the middle, because people love their action, but more people love more substance and story. So that's why it's in the middle.
I gave it a 4 for appeal. I think action films are kind of maybe oversaturated for people. I think trying to sell the premise of what this movie's about sounds really silly. So I think your die-hard action film watchers will give it a go, but trying to convince anyone else, I don't think it has any unique appeal. Even though I did say I think it was original, I think trying to sell it to people is going to be a hard sell, so it's a 4 for me. What about the recommendability? How easily could you recommend this to people?
I would say in the middle as well, a 5. I think I could convince the people that love action films and love films that have really good set pieces when it comes to action films, but they might go, well, is it as good as John Wick? And I would probably say no. So it depends on the individual, but I think I can convince half of the community, because it is a good action movie, but it's not fantastical compared to John Wick.
So I gave it a 4.5. I think its recommendability is slightly higher than its appeal, because I think if I said to someone, just watch this kind of mindless film
with bees.
The bee thing is like the analogies throughout, but it's not. You don't have to focus on the bee thing. It's just the analogy they use. If I was to find someone, I'd say just give it a watch. You'll probably think it's okay, which is isn't a great sell in itself. But I think 4.5 is a fair rating. I think I could go, well, it's probably not going to appeal to a lot of people, but just give it a watch. You're probably not going to hate it, and you probably won't watch it twice, but you're not going to regret watching it. Like, I didn't walk out of the film thinking I wasted time watching this film. It was like, I'm glad I saw it, but I wouldn't watch it twice. Talking about rewatching, how rewatchable is this film? What'd you give it out of 10?
For me, it's a 6. I really enjoyed the concept of the beekeepers. That kept me intrigued, that action set pieces, but when it comes to the plot with the rewatchability, I would probably get really frustrated and go, where was the writing? The writing is not that good and terrible, but that's why some things get better rewatchability, because I think some people kind of go, or directors or whoever's in charge go, we need to make this a good rewatchable movie, and unfortunately it's okay, but it's not amazing at rewatchability.
I gave it a 6.5. I do think it's rewatchable because it's kind of laughable at times. I wouldn't mind rewatching to try and pick up on a few things I missed, and it was short. Like, actually, for 105 minutes, it went real fast. So that makes... I feel like it's one of those movies I kind of like chuck on a second time, but not feel the need to fully invest in it. So, yeah, I do think it's somewhat rewatchable. What was your final score then, Jacob?
For me, it gets a decent 60% out of 100. I can see why I got that score. It's a B-grade action movie. It's not like an Oppenheimer that is visually a masterpiece, is getting all the awards. This is definitely not as a masterpiece of filmmaking. Christopher Nolan is definitely a better director in general. But the originality and experience of the two categories that it did really well at, and if you're looking for a movie to watch at the moment, I would definitely recommend seeing it, but besides that, I would wait for streaming and definitely give it a watch at some point, but yeah, I think it's better to wait for streaming.
I gave it slightly lower, 59%. Very similar to Jacob, I think you could wait to watch it. I only saw it because I'm trying to watch 100 movies this year, so I'm pretty much trying to see everything that comes out, but if I wasn't, I wouldn't have went, and I wouldn't have spent my hard-earned money on it, but it was not bad for an action film. I've seen a lot worse action films than this, so I think 59% for an action film, for me, I think it's a pretty good score for someone that's not really into it.
Yeah. As always, like and subscribe, comment about your thoughts, what you thought about the movie. As always, there's videos at the end. See you next time, and as always, you're awesome and keep being awesome. Bye bye.